This week, Signal rushes even to patch a serious eavesdropping vulnerability. I don't know, serious is really up for debate there. I think it's a little sensationalism going on. Wi-Fi signals let researchers ID people through walls based on their gait. The FBI warns about attacks that bypass multi-factor authentication. A vulnerable Twitter API leaves tens of thousands of iOS apps open to attack. And D-Link home routers are open to remote attackers and will remain that way because they're not going to patch it. In the expert commentary this week, Justin Els from Trusted Sec is here to talk about adversary emulation. All that and more on this episode of Hack Naked News. This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show that brings you the security news each week. And despite popular belief, we do wear pants. It's Hack Naked News. Let the team at Black Hills Information Security test your defenses. With over 10 years of experience in penetration testing, red teaming, and threat hunting, the testers at Black Hills will help you find the holes in your security before the bad guys do. The team at Black Hills cares about educating and sharing their knowledge by creating countless blogs, open source tools, and webcasts for you to learn more about the tradecraft of pen testing and red teaming. Visit securityweekly.com/BHIS to join their mailing list and view the latest blogs and webcasts from Black Hills Information Security. Too many alerts and not enough action? It's time to get SaltStack. SaltStack is an intelligent IT automation platform that detects security issues in critical business systems and then actually fixes them. With SaltStack, security and IT teams work together to define custom security policies with certified checks for CIS, DISA-STIGs, and more. You can scan systems for millions of compliance checks in minutes. Remediate compliance and vulnerability issues with powerful automation, all in a single platform. Visit securityweekly.com/SaltStack to learn more. Welcome to Hack Naked News, episode number 237 for October 8th, 2019. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, and if you hear construction, that's just they're installing solar panels on the roof, so there's not much I can do about that. In any case, we have exciting news about our webcast program as we are partnered with ISC Squared as an official CPE provider. That means if you attend any of our webcasts, you get one CPE credit. That's right, one CPE credit per webcast. You can go to the Security Weekly website. You can go to the webcasts menu, go to the pull down and choose from upcoming webcasts with folks from Preempt, ServiceNow, or Core Security, or you can go to our on-demand, it's also in the same drop-down menu, and check out our previously recorded webcasts. They are in the library, and you still have to register, but you can check them out. There's a lot of awesome content there. Basically, we talk about how things work in the real world, how to use some open source tools or processes and techniques on the topic, and then you get to learn how the vendor actually solves those problems. So it's great, great fun. And now for the security news this week. I found a really cool tool that I haven't used yet, but it's called LambdaGuard for AWS Lambda Serverless security scanning. It's a neat little tool. It is an AWS Lambda auditing tool designed to create asset visibility and provide actionable results. It provides a meaningful overview in terms of statistical analysis, AWS service dependencies, and configuration checks from the security perspective. It can scan for and find things such as poorly defined policies, unrestricted actions, unrestricted principles, undefined conditions, public S3 buckets, public API gateways, and more. So check it out. The link is in the show notes. Signal is rushing to patch a quote, serious eavesdropping vulnerability. The vulnerability can be exploited by using a specially crafted Signal client. The client initiates an audio call to the targeted user, and once it starts ringing, the attacker presses the audio mute button on their end, which forces the called device to go and answer that call. Now, the researcher Silvanovich, I think that's how you say her name, and noted in her bug report that the attacker cannot brute force the application to answer a video call. After details of the bug were made public, Signal's creator, Moxie Marlinspike, noted on Twitter that the exploit does not allow an attacker to silently enable the targeted device's microphone, as the victim would see this on the screen that there's a call going on, and the call is logged in the Signal's list of conversations. So I guess if you're not looking at your phone, it could be silent, but your phone's giving you a visual notification and logging that this happened. Of course, Signal did, in fact, fix the issue. Cisco closes several high-impact vulnerabilities in their security offerings. The vulnerabilities are affecting Cisco ASA devices, or software rather. The Cisco FTD, not the Florist, but the Firepower Threat Defense software, and Cisco's FMC, the Firepower Management Center software. Denial of service flaws might be a big part of that list. However, the newly patched ones affect Cisco's ASA devices, giving attackers many avenues to temporarily put them out of commission, opening enterprise networks to threats that protect against them potentially. The remote code execution and SQL injection flaws are affecting the Cisco Firepower Management Center, which they describe as the nerve center for managing Cisco network security solutions. They've been awarded some of the highest CVSS scores. Wi-Fi signals let researchers identify people through walls based on their gait. Now, similar research has been presented before from researchers working at MIT in 2015, and almost a year ago from the team at the University of California, Santa Barbara. Now, the UC Santa Barbara team researchers are at it again, so this is their latest research with a new technique. The methodology and experimental results from Mostafi's team, that's the name of the lead researcher there, will be presented at the 25th International Conference on Mobile Computing and Networking on October 22nd. They're going to show that Wi-Fi signals can be used to detect the gait of people through walls and then match it to previously captured video footage in order to identify individuals. They did this using off-the-shelf Wi-Fi gear without any prior footage or Wi-Fi mapping of an individual or a network. Now, you do need to capture them in one building and then match it to a signature in another building, but you don't need any historical information beyond that. Kind of a cool technique to check out. I don't think it's anything earth-shattering we need to do anything about right now, like lining your walls with lead or other types of shielding is probably not something you want to rush out to Home Depot and accomplish over the weekend, unless you want to. The FBI is warning us about attacks that bypass multi-factor authentication. Now, to get the point across, the FBI listed recent incidents where hackers had used these techniques to bypass MFA and steal money from companies and regular users alike, such as this short story that I thought was pretty good in 2019, as it was one of the more recent ones. A U.S. banking institution was targeted by a cyber attacker who was able to take advantage of a flaw in the bank's website to circumvent two-factor authentication implemented to protect accounts. The cyber attacker, as they call them, logged in with the stolen victim credentials, and then when reaching the secondary page where a customer would normally need to enter a PIN, answer a security question, click the picture of the dog or the taco or whatever it is, ridiculous things that the banks make you do, the attacker entered a manipulated string in the web URL setting and was recognized as a computer authorized to access the account. This allowed the attacker to bypass the PIN and security question pages and initiate wire transfers from the victim's account. A vulnerable Twitter API leaves tens of thousands of iOS apps open to attack. Make sure your Twitter app is up to date. According to researchers in Germany, the culprit is a flawed TwitterKit library that was replaced by Twitter about a year ago. However, a review of the 2000 most popular German iOS mobile apps revealed that the bad code is still used by 45 applications. So, sorry, this extends beyond your Twitter application. Anything that lets you send a tweet that uses that library is basically vulnerable. And with the TwitterKit framework, it could be closer to tens of thousands, said the researchers. Now, the flaw is being tracked as CVE 2019-16263. It's described as a bug in the TwitterKit Framework 3.4.2 for iOS that does not properly validate the API.twitter.com SSL certificate, although a certificate chain must contain one of a set of PIN certificates. There are certain implementation errors such as lack of hostname verification as well. So update your applications, your apps on your phone, I guess, if they have a fix for it. If not, then don't use it. I don't know. I don't have much great advice on that one, unless you want to start reverse engineering all of your apps, see which ones use Twitter, and see if they're using the vulnerable Twitter library. Top enterprise VPN vulnerabilities, a warning. VPN client vulnerabilities are posing risk to organizations, so much so that DHS is urging us to patch them. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, is aware of vulnerabilities affecting multiple virtual private network applications. A remote attacker could exploit these vulnerabilities to take control of affected systems. CISA encourages administrators to review the following security advisories and apply the necessary updates, including clients from Palo Alto, FortiGuard, and Pulse Secure are on the list with all of their advisory numbers, which there is a link to that in the show notes. D-Link home routers are open to remote takeover and will remain unpatched. A critical unauthenticated command injection vulnerability in its routers that could allow an attacker to remotely take over the devices and execute code. The vulnerability is being tracked to CVE 2019-16920, exists in the latest firmware for DIR 655, DIR 866L, DIR 652, and DHP 1565 products, which are Wi-Fi routers for the home market. D-Link told the Fortinet's FortiGuard Labs, who discovered the issue in September, that all 4 of those models are end of life and no longer sold or supported by the vendor. However, models are still available as from third-party sellers. The root cause of the vulnerability, according to Fortinet, is a lack of a sanity check for arbitrary commands that are executed by the native command execution function, which unfortunately is a pretty common problem across especially D-Link routers. Google patches remote code execution bugs in Android 10. It was a rough upgrade from 9 to 10. I don't know how many of you experienced an Android 9 to 10 update. The latest patch, which also applies these security fixes, has made things more stable. And fortunately, the October 2019 set of security patches for Android addresses 26 vulnerabilities in the operating system, including a couple of remote code execution bugs impacting Android 10. The most important of these vulnerabilities are 3 remote code execution flaws in the media framework. I won't read the CVE numbers. There's 3 of them there, and are rated critical on Android 7.1 all the way through 9. The most severe of these issues is a critical security vulnerability in the media framework component that could enable a remote attacker using a specially crafted file to execute arbitrary code within the context of a privileged process. I feel like I've read that about 1 million times in the past 15 years, pretty much those exact same keywords that are in there, right? That comes straight from Google. So we'll take a short break while you update your Android phones and come back with Justin Els from Trusted Sec. Stay tuned. Make sure your team is prepared to fight off the latest cybersecurity threat. IT Pro TV is the resource to keep you and your IT team skills up to date. You can stream IT Pro TV courses live and on demand, so there's no need to send staff to off-site training. Team subscriptions include Pro Portal, so managers have full control over your team's training schedule. Go to itpro.tv/hack-naked and use the code HN30 to try it free for 7 days and receive 30% off your monthly membership. The question is simple. Have any of the systems on my network been compromised? The answer is harder than it should be. Enter AI Hunter. Active Countermeasures has automated and streamlined techniques used by the best pen testers and threat hunters in the industry to create AI Hunter, a network threat hunting solution that does the first pass of a hunt for you to identify systems that are most likely to be compromised and scores the results on a scale from 0 to 100. You can then research those systems in depth with AI Hunter. Focus your valuable time on the systems that need your expertise with AI Hunter. Sign up for a personal demo today at securityweekly.com/ACM. Well, welcome back, everyone, to Hack Naked News. I am here with Justin Ells. He is the adversary emulation and threat research lead at Trusted Sec. Justin, welcome.
Welcome. How's it going?
Good. How are you? There's a typo in one of our listings of your title as thread research. So I was wondering if those are like threads like you would create in computer software or threads like clothing.
I know everybody, my title's huge. Red team lead is usually what it boils down to.
There you go. That's awesome. So Justin, nice to have you on the show today. I wanted to talk to you about adversary emulation, and for our audience, define what that is exactly for the listeners who may not know.
So normally people have experience with pen testing. This is the next step up. Building realistic attacks and like seeing how they play out on a client, going after specific data. These are over usually a much longer amount of time than a standard pen test. So usually talking, 1 or 2 months, 3 or 4 months, versus standard 1 or 2 week engagement.
And it's okay if you get caught because you just try again, right? And you have more time to do that kind of thing, or is like getting caught like really bad when you're doing these kind of tests?
So we try to balance it both ways. We obviously enjoy not getting caught. We go up against some of the best blue teams probably in the industry right now. So we do get caught. Obviously, it's our goal to get as far as possible before we get caught. If we do get caught, we usually make a decision on the fly with the client if we're going to continue or, start over from a new path.
What are some of the other differences between adversary emulation and penetration testing in its execution? Because it sounds like they're still pretty, you will have elements of that in a penetration test potentially, right?
So the thing with pen testing is you get coverage. So you have, 10,000 assets, we might touch, all of them in a pen test. On something like a red team, you might have 100 vulnerable systems. We might target a single one to get to our specific goal. Whether it be get to a particular piece of client data or, cut a check from a payment system. We try to leave as much untouched as possible and just get to our specific goals. It generally turns out you find routes that they haven't seen before to get to data. Traditionally, pen testing goes after domain admin or standard paths that, everybody follows. We tend to shake down or shake out paths people haven't seen before.
Yeah, so the goals are really important. You've given some examples already. Are there other like really good examples of goals that you would want to set if you're looking to engage in this type of testing?
So we like specific ones like a particular research project or a particular payment system, go as far as to cutting an actual check. If you have a merger and acquisition happening, get to that level of data, pull down specific emails from, an important person like a CEO. And then obviously exfil these things and take it, as far as they'd like to go. I think that's the one thing where you see pen tests. A lot of times they'll get to a system and stop, or there'll be some caveats along the way. We like to get all the way through, exfiltrate data, and then, prove out that it can be done.
Right. Yeah, that's really awesome. Now, are you covering your tracks when you do this, or does that vary per engagement, or is it off the table completely?
So it does vary per engagement. We do a lot with dropping custom payloads on the systems, using techniques they probably haven't seen before or varying public techniques to avoid detection. So we'll do some log cleanup, but it's not necessarily the first thing in our mind. I would say that, the thing that gives us the biggest problem would be, EDR products on the endpoint. And, from day to day, alerting and signatures change from various vendors that they push out. So, what would have worked a week ago might not work today.
Right. Yeah, I can see that being a constant cat and mouse game, especially in this one, where you've got all the time in the world, but you may only have enough time until that EDR updates and swallows up your payload, right?
Right. Yeah, we see that with a lot of vendors. Well, they'll take a payload that you can run successfully once. The EDR doesn't flag it, nothing happens. They send it off for manual analysis, even behind the scenes. You come back and run the same payload a couple days later, even if it didn't do anything crazy to get caught. They now have a signature for it because they decided, from manual analysis that it's now evil.
Right. Are there other things that you get to do on an adversary emulation engagement that are normally off the table in other types of pen testing engagements?
So we do physicals as part of the adversary emulation. It really depends on the client and their specific threat model. A lot of people, from the pen test world really enjoy doing physicals, and that's great. We like to try to focus on threats that the client actually faces. So we do have some clients where they are worried about somebody coming in from the outside, or like an insider threat scenario. So we'll build specific cases depending on the threat modeling, as we see it from our side and how the client sees it. So we work back and forth together.
And is the report still delivered at the end, or like, are there certain things that would make you stop and notify the client right away? Like, we should close this down right away, right?
So yeah, we'll tell them if we find something on the external facing environment that is either an ongoing breach or some leak that they're already having.
Yeah.
It's fairly common for us to pull valid credentials out of GitHub. You saw this a few years ago with DevOps companies, like West Coast companies. They had a lot of accidental leakage into Git. Now you see standard enterprise companies going the same way with DevOps and software as a service type stuff, and their systems engineers are committing like AWS secrets or other passwords to Git. So it's pretty standard that we pull those things down in the first couple days of doing an external assessment.
Is that usually public repos or private, or kind of a mixture?
No, it's public repos.
Gotcha.
It's really funny. I've been on sales calls with clients before, and I'm trying to get a gauge for their maturity level. And I've been like, hey, just so you know, I was poking around on the internet, and I pulled down, here's some passwords for a database server that were on Git. So it's happened more than once.
Yeah. Hopefully they're not I mean, there's another level of validation with that, right?
Right.
Because like once it gets in Git,
we've definitely seen they've been validated. So.
Yeah. But once it gets in there, it's hard to take them out, right? Because Git that's its intended purpose in life, right? Is to have that history. So what a lot of companies will do is just change them and be like, we're not going to spend the time to go back in and pull them out. We're doing something different now. We're not storing them in our code. We've got a secrets vault, and we've invalidated all those certs that are out there, kind of thing.
Yeah, that level of understanding of Git hasn't made its way to all enterprises yet. We see a lot of, you'll see a Git commit for deleted private keys, and people don't realize that data is still there because, like you said, that's the intended purpose of Git.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So what are some of the biggest challenges for you when you're doing an adversary emulation?
So these days, it's really been the research piece. I've been pen testing and doing offensive security for a long time. So in the past, you could go on GitHub or on Twitter and download the latest tool of the week, and you get some longevity out of that, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, maybe longer. Nowadays, with how fast things are changing, custom alerting, visibility on endpoints, we're to the point where we had to build a dedicated research team. They do research full time. They're not billable. They write custom code for us. If we encounter, hey, this EDR is doing something new we haven't seen, or we want to get on the system, they'll build something for us on the fly, or they'll build it as part of a long-term project. And I think that's been the biggest hurdle in the consulting world, at least for me, was, you're usually cognizant of billable hours and those things. And in the past, your consultants would write tools, on the weekends or at night. And security's matured to a point where you really need a team building these things. And it's great. I mean, it's a good problem to have, right? Security is getting better, so you need to do this, but at the same time, it's just kind of changing how consulting works.
Yeah. It's really interesting. We were chatting about that just before the show. That there's a lot of open source frameworks out there for building all kinds of payloads and everything, but most of that stuff is picked up by most of the EDRs out there today, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much how it works. And you have to, take those, modify them, test them, and then use them if that's the route you want to go. And we tend to vary, public tools, tools like Cobalt Strike or our own payload, depending on the situation, the client's maturity level, things like that. But it is very hard these days, on a mature client to just pull something down off the internet and, have good success with it.
Right. Yeah, I think I'd rather write code from the start too than pick up someone else's and try and change it around, right? And then you guys control everything. That's really smart, I think. And I think common practice today.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, I talk with a lot of other red teams. Everybody's going custom these days.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to balance. We want to give back as much to the community as possible because we get ideas from them.
Right.
So we've been trying to find a happy medium, doing things like, hey, we'll publish, a technique, maybe not a proof of concept, or we'll get you most of the way there on how to do something. That's kind of been the the big thing internally because everybody's so used to giving back to the community. I know Dave's always been a big proponent of that with Unicorn and a bunch of other tools. So it's been tough for us.
The last question here, Justin, what can the customer do to really maximize the success of these types of engagements? I think we established setting really good goals, right? But there are other things that we can do as customers.
So the big thing with clients is not informing everybody that's happening. You tend to get a raised level of awareness that might, not give you realistic results. At the end of the day, people are trying to break into your company. If you tell your SOC that, hey, we're having a test this next month, they're going to pull down, every alert, double check everything. And that's not a realistic expectation going forward. So,
that's great.
We love to work hand in hand, with blue teams. We see way more on the debrief side now. So I think that's the other piece of this is make sure you schedule enough time to have several meetings, have an on-site, really work with the blue team and help them understand why you made decisions and then how you made them. Because a lot of times when you have those discussions, they go, oh, we thought of this new path that, the red team didn't think of, but we'll build some detections ahead of time. So that sort of thing.
Right. No, that's awesome. Well, our listeners can check out more and find out more at securityweekly.com/trustedsec. Justin, thank you for appearing on Hack Naked News today.
Thank you for having me.
And that will round out the show. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.